Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and very good morning to everyone. My name is Imran Sardar, and I am a research analyst at the Institute of Regional Studies, which is the oldest and dedicated to the study of South Asia and Central Asia. Today, we have invited Professor Dr. Rashid Ahmed Khan to give us a lecture on Iran's increasing global outreach. Thank you, Professor Saab, for your time. Dear participants, Dr. Rashid Ahmed Khan is a former professor and chairman, Department of Political Science, University of the Punjab, Lahore. Prior, he was associated with the University of Sargodha as professor and chairman, Department of Political Science and International Relations, and Dean, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and Law. He has authored two books, Pakistan and Arab-Israel Conflict, and Perspectives on Current Affairs. Professor Saab, we have seen in September 2021, Iran became a permanent member of the SCO. In March 2023, the regional rivals, Iran and Saudi Arabia, agreed to re-establish diplomatic relations in an agreement brokered by China. And more recently, in August 2023, Tehran, along with other five countries, have joined the BRICS, the bloc of emerging economies. So apart from these developments, we have seen that Iran's outreach to Africa and its relation with China in the recent past has strengthened. So now the question is how to read these developments in the given time. Since all the developments took place in the post-US withdrawal era, wherein China's influence in Iran and the Middle East has increased significantly in the recent past. So in your opinion, which lens can give us a complete and comprehensive picture of Iran's foreign policy in the contemporary scenario? So over to you, sir. Kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And in the first instance, I thank Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad, for inviting me to share my thoughts on this very important topic. That is the journey of Iran from a state under the regime of sanctions imposed by the United States and joined by European countries, and how it has succeeded in breaking the cycle of isolation and has succeeded in making important strides in the outreach towards not only the neighboring countries, but the three continents, Asia, Africa, and even Latin America. Well, in my view, anybody who is familiar with the history of Iran will not be surprised by these successes achieved by Iran during this period. And first of all, I would refer to the ancient Persian Empire, which Iran has been the first and the largest superpower in the history of mankind. The ancient Persian Empire had under its control, it was extended to, it covered not only the present Iran, but also part of South Asia, which is now known as Pakistan, a very major part of Central Asia, almost the whole of the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, and up to the coast of East Africa, and North Africa up to Egypt, and also Eastern European countries, Balkans, etc. Now, this period of ancient Iran, I would emphasize, and I would underline the importance of this, the impact of the ancient Persian Empire on the future history of mankind. That is to say that it contributed a lot. It made a tremendous contribution to the development of cultural values and ethics, philosophy, politics, administration, good governance, human rights, even, and tolerance, and values which are now cherished by the developed and advanced countries. And this experience of Iran of being an empire has left lasting imprints on the areas which used to be the part of ancient Persian Empire. For example, east coast of Africa, the major language spoken there is known as Swahili. And you will find that apart from the local words, Arabic words, this language contains a large number of Persian words. Then, for a very long time, till the British succeeded in bringing under their control whole of India, Persia was the fourth language. And in Central Asia, in certain countries, for example, in Tajikistan, and even in Afghanistan, Persian is a major language. And also the Middle East up to the Mediterranean coast, this cultural impact of Persian Empire was lasting. So this has something to do. It's not relevant. This experience carries the relevance to the present mindset, to the present, what I say, the mode of Iranian foreign policy, especially towards neighbors. For example, I will give an example that when the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran in 1979, the Western countries, especially the United States, they said that Iran would follow an aggressive policy towards its neighbors. But since 1979, Iran has never invaded any of its neighboring country. Rather, Iran has been the victim of invasions, as we know. Then I will also refer to the fact that the ancient famous Silk Route, all the three major arteries of the famous Silk Route passed through Iran. One of them, that is to say, passing through the Pakistan along the Karakoram Highway. And this Silk Route, which connected east with the west, that is to say, was a link between China and Europe, hard trade, passed through Iran, and all these three routes, branches of Silk Route, passing through Iran, they converged on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean, and from there, the mercantile would be carried out through boats and ships to Europe. Iran made very important contribution to the success of the Silk Route. Not only that, Iran manufactured silk products, and apart from that, other commodities were also added to the caravan which were passing through Iran. This Silk Route had India as well as one of the catchment areas of the Silk Route. So Iran occupied a central position in the ancient trade pattern, which was based on the famous Silk Route. So that's why I think this importance of Iran was never lost on the minds of the Western countries. And that is why when the European powers, they came to South Asia towards the end of 15th century, and they made it a point to extend their control towards the Persian Gulf. And this is how Britain concluded crucial agreements with the smaller countries of Persian Gulf, and also tried to exercise control over Iran. Coming to the recent developments, that is to say, especially Iranian efforts to link itself with the Eastern countries I would like to say that this is not a new development. And this is not a development which has taken place only after Islamic Revolution. Even before revolution, under Shah of Iran, there was, although during that period, Iran was a part of what was known at that time twin strategy. Twin pillar strategy, twin pillar strategy proponed by the United States for the defense and security of the Persian Gulf. That is to say, the United States had relied upon two states, Saudi Arabia and Iran, as two pillars for the security of the Persian Gulf area, for whole of this area, not only for the Persian Gulf, but even beyond Eastern Africa, Red Sea, etc. And we know that during that period, under Shah of Iran, Iran was overly oriented towards the West. In spite of that, Iran was still interested in expanding its links with South Asia. For example, there was a proposal by Shah of Iran to set up an extended South Asian community larger than the present-day SAARC, which was to include not only Iran, but also Burma, Myanmar, which was known at that time as Burma, and Sri Lanka, as part of that extended South Asian community. And we also know that Iran was linked with Pakistan through RCD, Regional Cooperation for Development, also CENTO. And also during the Shah of Iran's time, Iran took measures to invest heavily in India. A very big aluminium plant was set up in southern India during that period. Now, after the revolution, that is 1979, Iran, we know that for a very long period, Iran was not able to have some kind of peace at home or stability because of Iran-Iraq war, then also because of the hostile policy of the Western countries. But despite that, just we are focusing on SCO, but you know, even before this, the success of Iran, membership of Iran, that is to say, Iran has become member of SCO. But before that, this was the policy, or a similar policy was adopted by President Ahmadinejad, who was president of Iran from 2005 up to 2013, and he tried to wean Iran away from Western countries, because despite the revolution, Iran remained engaged with the Western countries because its economy, its trade pattern, and the market, especially for oil, they were closely linked with the Western countries, and Iran could not disengage completely from the Western countries. It continued to remain engaged with the Western countries because of some compulsions, very important compulsions, economic compulsions. But at the same time, Iran had adopted a conscious policy to move towards the East. And during the period of the President Ahmadinejad, Iran tried to cultivate relations, or Iran tried to connect itself with countries like China, like SAARC, etc. But at that time, the policy of SCO was not to admit new members. So Iran could only become an observer of SCO in 2005. Iran also became an observer of SAARC in 2005. And that showed the interest. But I think when President Ibrahim Raisi became president of Iran, Iran had learned enough experience of engagement with the Western countries, and was extremely disappointed by the attitude, by the behavior, by the policies, and by the actions of the Western countries, not only the United States, but also the European countries. So that is why Iran took a deliberate, conscious, active steps towards connecting itself with the Eastern countries, are the countries of the developing world, the countries of emerging economies, etc. Since 2021, when Raisi became president of Iran. There were three reasons why Iran became more proactive towards following this pro-East policy. Number was the demonstration of a spineless foreign policy by European countries. The European countries failed to reprimand the United States for opting out of the nuclear deal, which was signed in 2015. The European countries, although the European countries were against it, they didn't like it, and they were not in favor of withdrawing from the treaty, and they tried to prevent, to some extent, I mean to say, Trump from withdrawing from this treaty, but the disappointment for Iran was that European countries joined the United States in implementing, in enforcing the sanctions against Iran. Then Iran was also disappointed by the policy of the European countries on the war in Ukraine. That is to say, the European countries aligned with the United States on this war, supported the effort of the United States on this war. Although in the beginning it was expected that countries like Germany would not practically take part, would not supply weapons to Ukraine. Especially, it was not expected of NATO. But the NATO countries, but the European countries, they made the Ukrainian conflict as the conflict of their own, and they also tried to coerce and force other countries to follow their suit, and also to become aligned with them. That was also a disappointment for Iran. So I think it is largely because of the opportunist, and because of the what should I say, the selfish policies of the Western countries, including the European countries. Although towards Iran, on the question of a nuclear deal, and also on the question of sanctions that forced Iran to look towards East. And so far as Iran's membership of SCO is concerned, SCO is basically a geopolitical and security organization, and it has not much to show in the area of economic integration. But the benefits of the Iranian gains by becoming the member of SCO are more political. That is to say, Iran has succeeded in breaking the circle of isolation. That is to say, Iran defeated the policy of the United States to isolate it from the rest of the world, rest of the countries. And that is why Iran can say at least that I have strong friends. And this is a fact, because when the European countries and the United States adopted a hostile policy towards Iran, especially tried to interfere in the internal affairs of Iran, and also enforced stricter sanctions. There was China and the Soviet Union who supported Iran. So at least Iran could say that it has reliable and fast and good friends. And then also, we cannot deny that Iran, that SCO and BRICS are now the engines of economic growth in the world. We find that SCO contributes more than 20% of GDP. So far BRICS is concerned, is controls 85%, 75% trade, and then the GDP. So that is why I think Iran has joined these groups, or has been invited to join this group, because Iran, because of Iran's geopolitical position, Iran's past history, and Iran's ability to act as a conduit of trade and economic relationships and regional connectivity, not only through Persian Gulf and through Iran up to Central Asia and Caspian Sea basin and Russia, etc. But we should also be aware that Iran has the ability to extend its influence or exercise its influence much beyond its borders because of its past experience and because of its geopolitical position. I would also try to point out that even before Iran became a member of SCO and BRICS, Iran was connected with Russia through a number of economic transport corridors. For example, the international north-south transport corridor, then north-south corridor, which connected India with Russia through Iran, Afghanistan, Central Asia. Then the second was the connection between India, Iran, Azerbaijan, Central Asia, and Russia. So, although these corridors are not much successful or much operational, they have not become fully operational, and because of the expansion of SCO and because of the expansion of BRICS, now the focus is on these two international organizations. And in this respect also, Iran's outreach is not limited just to the membership of SCO and BRICS. Iran has also taken important steps to establish its bilateral relations with the countries of Africa, for example. With last year, Iran's exports to Africa were just about $2 billion, and Iran plans to increase these exports 10 times to African countries. President Ibrahim Rashid visited 3 African countries in July this year, and there is a ground, there is a basis, there is a background for Iran to have close relations with African countries because of historical reasons, because of cultural reasons, because of political reasons. So Iran has become a country which has succeeded in establishing not only bilateral relations, but also multilateral relations with the countries of 3 continents, Asia, Africa, and Latin America, through SCO and through BRICS. Now, so far as Iran, Saudi Arabia reconciliation is concerned, we are witness to the comments made by this development, on this development by the Western countries or the Iranian media or the international media, that it was a game changer. It was a shocking development for the Western countries. Why? Because the United States has been a major actor in the Middle East since the end of the Second World War. The United States had dominated the Middle East because of its military power, military deployment in and around the Middle East. The United States has concentrated powers in the Indian Ocean. The United States controls the Red Sea. United States controls the Mediterranean. And it was unthinkable. It was rather unimaginable that any important political development would have taken place without the approval or without the nod of the United States. Because the United States has very important stakes in the Middle East, not only in the oil, but also because of the location of the Middle East. Because Middle East provides a link between Europe and the Southeast Asia and other countries through Suez Canal. And that is why the United States maintains military bases in and around the Middle East. But in spite of that, the United States, if you look at the history of the Middle East from the end of the Second World War to the present time, you will find that United States has become a symbol of conflict, war, and destruction in the Middle East. It has never been able to make peace in the warring sides or permanent peace. I mean, it managed to arrange some kind of truce or ceasefire, but it has never been able to bring about reconciliation or peace among the countries. So it was China, which although China had historical links with the Middle East through ancient Silk Route also, and China also a permanent member of UN Security Council, and China was also a member, like a country which contributed towards the conclusion of a nuclear deal between Iran and the United States in 2015. But the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia through the efforts of China was really a shocking development for the United States. It has definitely demonstrated the weakness of the United States. It has proved that the influence of the United States in the Middle East and in the Persian Gulf is on decline. It has demonstrated that the United States no longer is in a position to call shots, and it is there are new players in the Middle East and in the Persian Gulf. So this is a very important development, and its repercussions, its implications are not limited only to bilateral relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia, or relations between Iran and the Middle Eastern countries. Its importance, its significance, and its implications extend much beyond the Middle East. You will see that very important developments would take place. Already important developments have taken place in the Middle East because of the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Syria has been accepted or readmitted into the fold of Arab League. There are improvements, major improvements between Turkey and the Arabian countries, and also there is a reconciliation among the conflicting states of the Persian Gulf. But this development, that is to say, the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia through the efforts of China, which has gained a very important position, influence in the Middle East, it will not only lead to an increase in the influence of China in the Middle East, but also it will increase it will extend Chinese influence from the Middle East towards other areas, towards North Africa, towards Mediterranean, to the Caspian Sea, and through that in the Central Asian region, and also to Africa beyond the Indian Ocean. I can foresee that despite heavy deployment of forces in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf partners by the United States will not be able to stem the tide of the influence, rising tide of the influence of China in this region. And since China is the backbone, the driving force behind not only SCO, but also in BRICS, there is a possibility that these two organizations, that is SCO and BRICS, they are among the entities which are rewriting a new world order. A new world order is in making. And in this process, not only China and other emerging countries are involved, that is the countries of multipolar world, but also Iran would also become a very important player because of its history, because of its experience, and because of its location. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Saab, for a detailed overview of the development that taking place in Iran. So in the beginning, I just asked a question, which lens should we use to see the Iran's recent developments? So I just got the answer from your presentation that it was a historical lens that traced back to the Persian Gulf. And the second one is the post-79, 1979 revolution era. These are the two, I think, that you mentioned are the important divergence in Iran's foreign policy. So, especially as you mentioned that after Ibrahim Raisi, the Iran's foreign policy has actually turned towards the east. So most of the policy analysts observe that Iran's foreign policy has become more pragmatic. But as you suggested that Iran's foreign policy is more towards the east, and it is more responsive to the Western's attitude, particularly the United States attitude towards the Iran. So how do you rate this foreign policy turn? Do you see it is more pragmatic or it is biased against the Western countries?
It's not biased, or you cannot say that there is an element of bias in this change. I wouldn't say change, it's a reorientation of Iranian foreign policy. You can say it's a reactive, that is true. It is a sign of a reaction, a natural, inevitable reaction from a sovereign state like Iran towards the attitude of the Western countries. See, for example, and you also know, we all know that there are contradictions, there are differences, which are called transatlantic differences between Europe and the United States also. And these differences are divergence of perceptions, you can say also, have surfaced time and again in the history of relationship between Europe and the United States. After the Second World War, for example, de Gaulle's policy. De Gaulle had adopted a policy based on the concept of independent Europe. And that is why de Gaulle opposed US policy towards Israel. De Gaulle was the first and an important European leader who had denounced Israeli policy towards the Arabs and openly differed from the policy of the United States adopted in the Middle East based on total support for Israel. And you can also that France withdrew from SCO in 1968 something. I don't remember. Anyhow, and also shifted the NATO headquarters, military headquarters from Paris. I mean, there is a ground. There are germs of European, what should I say, suspicion, European resistance towards the efforts by the United States to dominate it. And after the fall of Berlin, after the fall of Warsaw Pact and also disintegration of the Soviet Union, the United States is worried about that, worried about Europe being dominated again by some other European powers, maybe Germany or the Soviet Union, Russia, for example. That is the cause. That are the main reasons behind the U.S. support to U.S. policy decision to extend NATO to Ukraine and then come to the aid against Russia. Although, what business the United States has to do in you from a distance of thousands of miles, when the United States was not ready to accept and tolerate the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba. So how the US can justify extension of NATO to Ukraine, which became the source of conflict in Ukraine? I've said these things only to explain that Iran had expectations that European countries at least would take some kind of different policy from the United States. They would denounce this step taken by Trump, and did not side with the United States in enforcing sanctions on Iran.
So right now, do you think there is no scope of a European and Iranian, some kind of improvement at the highest level? As we have seen that JCPOA is hanging on the United States attitude towards that. So
I will not rule it out, because nothing can be ruled out in history or in politics. And there are some signs of restiveness among some European countries, including France, for example, on the prospects of Ukraine war being prolonged because of the support that US is providing to Europe. And to say the European countries, in fact, are not happy over the prolongation of Ukraine war. There is possibility that at some stage the European countries would learn a lesson, may already there are murmurings, there are some grumblings, there are some signs of disagreement from the European countries regarding the Ukraine war. So I will not say that there is no scope. There is. I mean, it is the necessity of history. History will force the United States, force the European countries to take a more independent, nationalistic, and rational point of view or stand around Ukraine war.
Thank you, dear participants. The floor is open for the questions. If you have any, kindly paste your question in the chat panel. Right now, I have one question that is from Noman Hussain. Noman is asking about how does it affect its position in Middle Eastern conflicts, such as the Yemen civil war or the Syrian conflict?
I think already the impact of at least the reconciliation between Iran and Saudi Arabia, that has started to impact upon the conflict in the Middle East. And there are some important movements towards reconciliation. Because of reconciliation with Iran, now Saudi Arabia and the allies of Saudi Arabia are more inclined towards peace and settlement in Yemen. And secondly, I think in the Middle East, already it has led to some kind of peace and normalization of relations between Syria and other Arab countries. So I think because since the question has been asked about the membership of Iran, SCO and the BRICS, and there its impact on the Middle East conflict. Middle East is a region which is relevant to three continents, that is Asia, Africa, and Europe. So any positive development which takes place in these three countries would have its impact on the Middle East in a positive manner.
Thank you very much. Now, I have another question that is related to the, capitalizing on Iran's legal. Do you think that Iran will be able to capitalize on its recent global outreach more effectively, or it is just using this as a point scoring?
I think, first of all, right now, at the moment, the immediate concern, immediate interest of Iran by embarking upon this outreach is to at least come out of the containment and isolation imposed by the Western countries through its sanctions regime. And secondly, Iran, Iran's focus is on promoting economic relations and trade, and to defeat the sanctions regime. And thirdly, Iran, no doubt, because of the hostility that has been adopted by the United States and the European and allies of the United States, would try to strengthen itself economically and also exert its influence in the areas around Iran. But I will not say that Iran, in view of the history of Iran through since the revolution, I don't think that Iran would be tempted to adopt some kind of aggressive policy towards neighbors or expansionist policy, or Iran will be inclined towards adopting a hegemonic policy in the Persian Gulf or in the Indian Ocean, or as Kissinger, in some of his articles, had feared that Iran is trying to revive the old ancient empire which extended from towards these areas. I don't think that any path like this would be adopted by Iran because of its past behavior and attitude towards its neighbors. You see, you will remember that it was not revolutionary Iran, it was pre-revolutionary Iran under Shah, which had forcibly occupied two islands in the Persian Gulf, the Lesser Dome and Greater Dome. Iran has refrained from entering into any kind of dispute or using force to impose its will on any of the countries of the Persian Gulf.
Thank you, Professor, sir. Now, the President IRS, Ambassador Nadeem Saab, wants to ask a question. Sir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Imran. Assalamu alaikum, sir. It was a delight listening to you. I have a very general question. I basically, there's a lot of changes which are taking place in the region. There's this rapprochement, there's a lot of talk about it. But do you think that there are going to be any radical changes in the coming months or years in this region, given the global situation, the way it is unfolding? Thank you.
Please, would you please repeat your question?
So my question is that there are a lot of changes taking place globally, and then there is this great expectation from the rapprochement which has taken place between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So do you think that the Middle East as a region will undergo any major changes in view of the global and regional developments in the coming months or a year or so?
Definitely. You know, the rivalry or the tension between Iran and Saudi Arabia had held back in the past. The movement of the countries of this region towards some kind of independent action and policy and role in regional and also in world affairs. The rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia would unleash the forces which would be used by these countries to exercise their sovereign independence and decision-making in economic matters, in trade relations, in political relations, and in utilizing their capital for the benefit of the people of their countries for the development, instead of spending on arms, costly arms, to be purchased from the United States and become economic cannon fodder for the Americans in regional conflicts and wars. I think one of the factors which drove Saudi Arabia to accept reconciliation with Iran through Chinese efforts was that there was a visible desire by the other countries of the Persian Gulf, the smaller countries of Persian Gulf, apart from Saudi Arabia, that they wanted to spend their earned petrodollars or their oil income on the social and economic development, on the uplift of their countries, and to increase the standard of living of their people. So there was the tension or the conflict between so-called conflict promoted by the Western countries, and especially by the United States, between Saudi Arabia and Iran was working as a shield, or as what should I say, a block. It was blocking the efforts of these countries to divert their resources towards the socio-economic development. So first of all, I think the countries of the Middle East, especially oil exporting countries, but small countries, they will be free to pursue their independent foreign policy and will be free in their decision making. And secondly, there will be, I think, increase in the economic relationship, trade, and cultural relationship between these countries and the countries of surrounding regions, especially South Asia.
Thank you, Professor. As you are aware that the United States is closely watching the recent developments taking place in the region. So right now there is no concrete strategy that is coming up from the United States and Israel side. So do you think there is any scope of any aggressive response to that recent development which are taking place under the Chinese umbrella? So there is any scope of any aggressive strategy coming up from the United States side, or if yes, how it is going to impact the development taking place in?
Yes, the United States definitely has some strategy, but the problem is that it is largely a military strategy, not a political strategy. I mean, the United States perceives the problem of this region in terms of security and in terms of military. And that is why it relies more on the military means or the military component of its strategy. And this is why I say that this strategy is deemed to fail, because in the past history, such strategies have failed. The British strategy failed, which we pursued in the whole of 20th century and had to withdraw from the areas east of Suez. When the presence of the United States in this part of the world, that is the Indian Ocean, and even in the Persian Gulf, started in mid 60s when Britain announced that because of economic compulsions they were withdrawing their forces from the areas east of Suez. And right now, the US strategy is to strengthen an alliance of like-minded countries like, for example, Japan, Australia, India, South Korea, and now Taiwan, no, Vietnam, in what is known as the Indo-Pacific regional strategy. And the United States thinks that by following this strategy, it will be able to contain not only China, but also it will also be able to suppress the urge by the local countries to be independent in their decision making. But I don't think that this strategy is likely to succeed.
I agree that the political strategy would be there, not the military strategy from the United States side. So I just want to ask you one last question. How do you see the initiative of the new development bank of BRICS? Is it going to just make a significant impact in the sustainable development goals of the respective countries?
Pardon, new development?
New development bank of BRICS.
New development of, yes.
NDB.
Yes. We know that this new development bank is headquartered in Shanghai, in China, and China is going to provide capital for this development. Now, this is China. China is you can call China as a guarantee for the success of BRICS, because China is a country which can provide capital for investment. The main focus of BRICS is on trade and also on the building of infrastructure. For this development, for this undertaking, China has not only experienced but has also the means. That is, it has also surplus capital. China is a country which has huge surplus capital, and it can invest in the construction of infrastructure and also in the economic development. And China has also done this in Africa and under other connectivity or economic corridors. So I think new development bank was not only a timely, it was a necessary step, and this is an indication that the member countries of BRICS, they are eager to embark upon the path of economic development, especially in the construction of infrastructure.
Thank you, Professor. Sir, Ambassador Nadeem Riasa wants to ask another question. Sir.
I hope you don't mind. I'm just, I just want to educate myself because it's a very interesting talk. So you know that a lot of developments are taking place in the Indian Ocean, and the thrust of all major powers is going towards that with new organizations coming up. Pakistan doesn't have a presence in the Indian Ocean in terms of participating in any of the organizations which have come up, including the IOR. So do you think that with the development of Chabahar and the relationship which is improving between India and Iran, do you think that some additional challenges will be posed to us in the Indian Ocean in the coming months?
Definitely, Indian Ocean has become the focus of major powers, not only the United States, which was already present there. As I said, that the presence of the United States dates back from mid-1960s, and it has increased its presence, strengthened its presence in the Indian Ocean. But other countries, like, for example, China, it has also tried to increase its presence. But the Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean is largely in the shape of bilateral agreements with smaller countries of South Asia, like Sri Lanka and Maldives and Pakistan and also Mauritius, etc., and Djibouti. But I think so far Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan's problem is that right from the beginning, Pakistan paid no attention to the development of its navy, and especially merchant navy. So that is why Pakistan's policy regarding the Indian Ocean was only to rely upon the power of the Western countries, with which it was aligned through CENTO and CETO. So Pakistan, the defense policy of the Pakistan's defense policy relied upon making, was land-based policy, and it paid no attention, although our 80% of imports and exports come through sea, and sea is so important for our not only physical security, but also economic security. So Pakistan can only be a part of any strategy of the Indian Ocean through China. And I mean, the only option left for Pakistan is to I think, first of all, strengthen its navy, expand its navy. Pakistan has taken some steps to strengthen and expand its navy, and then also strengthen Gwadar. And Pakistan, I mean, just as India, for an effective and a powerful Indian ocean strategy, is forced to rely on the United States, to enter into alliance with the United States, because Indian strategists openly say that India alone cannot control the Indian Ocean. India alone cannot be an effective power in the Indian Ocean. It has to be aligned with other and more powerful power, like the United States. Before the United States entered into the Indian Ocean, the Indian thinkers, strategic thinkers like Panikkar and even Pandit Nehru in his book, Discovery of India, they were of the opinion that India should align with Britain or rely on Britain for power, because Britain at that time controlled the Indian Ocean, exit and center points of the Indian Ocean. So for Pakistan, I mean, say the only option is to align with China and then strengthen its navy, strengthen Gwadar post, and concentrate and focus on the northwestern part of the Indian Ocean, which is the most important part of the Indian Ocean, because it was this part of the Indian Ocean which was used by the European powers to establish their empire from the Portuguese to the British. So that is why, so far Pakistan is concerned, I think Pakistan, first of all, should take steps to improve and cultivate relations with smaller countries of South Asia, like Maldives, Sri Lanka, etc. Then Pakistan should pay attention to the Persian Gulf states and Horn of Africa, and even, and most importantly, East African countries. That will give Pakistan some kind of benefit, some kind of or a position from which Pakistan can protect its interest in the Indian Ocean. Pakistan can promote its interest in the Indian Ocean, especially in trade with African countries or the countries of the Middle East.
Thank you, Professor Saab. I think there are no more questions in the chat panel. So in the end, I would just like to thank all the participants and Professor Saab for a wonderful presentation. We have been really educated from your bold analysis on the recent development that you just mentioned in your presentation. So we have another webinar in the pipeline for on the Iran-Saudi Arabia rapprochement. We had we had just organized a webinar on that in the, I think, last month. So in the coming week, maybe, or in the first week of October, we are going to just organize another webinar, follow-up webinar on the Saudi-Iran rapprochement. So we would be happy if you would spare some time and
Sure.
enlighten us about enlighten us on this.
Definitely, it will be my
also.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It will be my pleasure and honor also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Allah Hafiz.